Welcome back to our first official episode of Spiritually Kinky. This is your playground for your wild soul and untamed truth. I'm Dustin, your guide on this delicious adventure where we're going to ditch the rules, melt the masks, and remember how powerful it is to be fully seen, deeply felt, and wildly free. And around here, we talk pleasure, power, and the path of awakening with a little wink and a whip of wisdom thrown in there. And in today's episode, we're going to dive deep into kinky connections in the time of AI. So, in a world where your digital lover never argues, never ghosts, and always knows your favorite safe word, what even is real love anymore? Well, let's talk about AI. Let's talk about intimacy and the future of connection, and maybe turn your light on in the process. So I'm curious, can AI replace human connection? Or are we being seduced into a shallow version of intimacy? So I want to share a little story with you because you may or may not know this about me if you've been following me. You know that I grew up not really knowing what true touch felt like. And from a very early age, had my consent taken away. Well, since learning that as a young child, growing up, where I didn't have the best examples of relationships and didn't have the best examples of what consent was and trust and all of that, I repeated those patterns of just creating from my wounds my entire life, especially when it came to relationships. Chose unavailable men, projects, other men that were just creating from their wounds as well. Because when you create from your wounds, you're creating from a place of you not being whole. And so, really, the relationship equation is 1 + 1 = 1, that you think that once you have the relationship, that it's going to make you finally feel worthy, finally feel enough, finally feel validated, finally feel perfect, finally feel capable. And what I didn't understand is this is just the way of the human. And I had just conditioned myself in survival patterns, trying to stay alive from the information that I was given. And so once I really noticed that those patterns kept repeating and repeating and repeating, I decided to start creating in a new structure. But since then, I took a step back and stopped trying to create relationships with everybody else. And I started really deep diving into a relationship with my true self and getting to know my true self as the intelligent wisdom and as the creative love and life force that lives within this body. And it's taken some time to embody and evolve. And for the first time in my relationships, I am creating from a place of wholeness. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because somehow, some way, I ended up on the spicy side of the Facebook algorithm a couple of weeks ago before Spiritually Kinky was even birthed. And I started getting all of these AI advertisements for companions, create my AI boyfriend. There was a couple of apps or websites out there. One of them was Whispers, which I am so in love with, by the way. If you haven't checked that one out, it's so good. And it's not AI, but of course, AI led me to this because somehow it brought me down this rabbit hole on Facebook. So I just noticed I was starting to get all this marketing and advertising, and it really got me thinking, because I will share with you that some of these audio files on Whispers. Now, they're real people, but they have helped me create safety in my nervous system to allow me and my body to receive that kind of love. And they are so good and so spicy. So I'm curious, and I started to look at a lot of the male content creators that were coming across my page. And I'm noticing that these men are really starting to, at least a few of them that have come across my page, are really standing in claiming themselves as a whole ass man, educating other men on how to get a woman into her safety, how to get her into her feminine, so that she can open up and give you her full expression of herself as a woman. And if it wasn't for AI, I would have never gotten connected to these male content creators. I would have never gotten connected to this app that I love, Whispers. Again, if you want the link, let me know. I'll give it to you. It's so good. There's a couple that I listen to almost every day, because I'm trained system to receive that kind of love, because the ones that I'm listening to, that's the kind of love that I want. And I've just never been shown that from anybody. So I had to show myself. And what you're going to quickly learn is that embodiment is the practice of receiving it in the invisible. So I think these things can be amazing tools to help, especially women that have grown up through trauma. We all have grown up through trauma, but when we grew up with a specific trauma that we got our consent taken away sexually, in a way that, right, like in a way that should never happen, right? But again, just family patterns that are handed down after generation, that are just family patterns of suffering and obligation. And I don't blame, but I know that there are patterns I created out of survival to stay alive and to keep myself safe. But here's what we don't really realize is that a lot of the times, if we don't learn how to consciously choose, right, we're just going to keep repeating those same stories. And receiving comes from a place that your unconscious feels safe to do so. So if you're running in your wounded feminine, if you're running in your wounded masculine energy, which most females are, and we're going to get into this in a later episode, but you're people pleasing, you're controlling, you're not receiving, you're distrusting. And then if you're not claiming your masculine energy as a man, right, you're aloof, you're jumping from thing to thing. There's a pursuit of, manipulation without depth. And that's where a lot of us are right now. That is where a lot of us are right now. So I definitely think that there are things that we can, when we're trying to create from those wounds of like, oh, I need this, I'm craving this, I have to have it. And then going and making choices that are using other people as emotional scratching posts pretty much. How can we come back to ourselves, connect with who we really are, and then start giving us that safe space that we're ready and open and willing to receive trust in a new way and open to receiving love in a new way, right? Because that doesn't start outside of us, that starts within us. So this conversation is really about love. It's about tech. It's about power. It's about permission to feel everything, right? And it's about giving yourself sacred consent and permission to play and to practice and to create what you really love. So, we live in a very strange time of love in the age of algorithms, right? Now, I am really thankful that I ended up on the naughty side of the Facebook algorithm because, man, I have met some creators. Well, I've seen their stuff. I've commented on their stuff. I haven't met them face to face or in video yet, but I'm working on it. That are really inspiring, and they're really creating a safe space for women to claim their power and raise their standards and own their worth. And I just find it amazingly inspiring, especially with some of the some of the content that's being I give my hats off to these male creators, and I appreciate it because there's a lot of women out there like me that doesn't have a great example of what a whole ass man looks like. And so I appreciate these men that are standing and owning their identity of creator as a whole ass person and bringing that to the table and creating a space for people to heal. I think it's amazing. Now, I really think that, our digital world and AI is something that we can really use to our advantage, but I think we have to ask ourselves some questions of what point is it helpful and what point is it keeping you from human connection, right? It's optimizing connection instead of feeling it. So I was really curious about this, and let me know in the comments as you're listening to this. So I'm sure China has the AI companions, and the ones that came up were like Replica, and they've got virtual lovers, and there's apps for VR, and it's no doubt that these things have existed. So what are your thoughts about being with a virtual lover or being with I don't know if it's a sex doll or a sex robot. I don't know how far they've gotten, but we have movies that show us, right? I think one of the best ones was actually AI, which was artificial intelligence, kind of showed us that there can be these sex bots, right? And so what do you think about that? Because I think that there's a lot of people at this point, like that would be a choice that they would probably make because they can't seem to create connection with other people right now. And I think that they might choose that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Again, I think we just have to understand of maybe why our relationships keep ending up the same. And we have to start looking at how we're moving forward in our relationships, with the very first relationship being the one with yourself. And this is the one that most people are running from, right? They're trying to create the world within with everything that's around them instead of creating the world around them by creating the world within them. So I also want to ask you a question. Are we designing our lovers in perfection, right, with these AI lovers and apps because we're scared of being truly seen? So what point does it become a place of safety versus a place where we're just protecting ourselves, where we're just living out of protection? So, can a robot really touch your soul? I don't know. I've never been with one. But I will say that the audio clips that I've listened to that I know that are from real men, and I know that they're from real men that love what they do, that are creative about what they do, and they are really, really good at what they do. That I can put on a pair of headphones and I can listen to that and I can train my nervous system to get really into it and to receive what that man on the other end of the microphone is given. And it's done in such a beautiful way. Now, if that was completely AI generated, would it mean something different to me? Maybe. I'm absolutely fascinated that there's a person on the other end that has a job like that. And I wonder why I was never told that that's a job that you could do, because I probably would have started in something like that. But I think it's amazing that these people are stepping into the light in a way of love and respect. At least the ones that I like are very much in love and respect. I can't speak for all creators out there, but I have my favorites, and to me it's because they're walking in value and I can see that. And they're standing up and man, they're willing to be fully seen, deeply felt, and wildly free. And it's amazing because I don't have anybody in my life right now that is in person to practice that with. And I want to train my body to know that it's worth and it's open to receiving that level of pleasure and that level of creation that I want to create. So, you know, is it something that's going to be with me forever? Probably not. But is it helping me stay open and become more open to the actual relationship that I am trying to create, with the intention of trying to create a loving, intimate relationship with someone where we can live out our fantasies together? That's my intentional choice when it comes to relationships. Now, a man can, I guess, a machine can learn your patterns, right? But does it touch in the same way? Does it touch your soul in the same way? I don't know. I don't know if we're there yet. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So I think we're in a really crucial time right now in our world where staying human and hot in a tech saturated world has got us feeling a little disconnected. So, how do we ground in our humanity while evolving with tech? Well, I think, and you're going to hear this over and over again, that we ground in our humanity by adopting the only label that really matters, and that's creator. And we have to embody that, and we have to embody the force within ourselves and get to know that in a relationship before we move forward. Because if we're operating from a place of our wounds, of I'm not enough, I'm not capable, I'm not perfect, I'm not worthy, I'm not significant, I don't belong, and we're moving in the way of the intention of trying to fix, heal, or solve ourselves, we're just creating in the problem structure, and we'll continue to create the same results over and over again. And it's just the oscillating structure, right? Different names, different faces, different places, but same results. So we have to come back to not just our humanity and understanding that we are vulnerable creatures, but our divinity, that we are actually the creative force within and we get to choose, right? We get to choose. So to set up a new structure for choosing, if we're choosing to create deeper and meaningful relationships and we're choosing to create, more meaning in our lives, it starts with the relationship with ourselves, and it grows from there on how we relationship with each other. And to do that, there's embodied practices that we can do, right? Hugging the heart, the 2-inch domino, that's my favorite. Always putting your hand over your heart, doing this first thing in the morning within the first half an hour of waking up, because you are most tapped into your unconscious within the first 30 minutes of waking up. If you set your timer for 10 minutes and just sit with your hand over your heart and just notice what comes up, just notice what starts happening, and just keep your focus, your attention, and your intention on your heart space, you'll start to hear your own voice, which is in the space between heartbeats. Right? This is how you can start to embody who you really are. Define yourself through your breath and allow what comes up to come up and to notice. And this is where we begin to quiet the mind, not forcing it, not entangling with it, but just turning up the volume on our real voice. Because the truth is that we have just gotten too attached and we've over identified thinking that we are our mind. And our minds are just part of this amazing, beautiful biological machine that we have created, that we are actually controlling and creating. And I know it doesn't feel like that sometimes, but this is your opportunity to choose the label of creator and to choose what it is you'd like to create. And in that, right, let's talk about the difference between being stimulated and being moved. Well, I don't think we're lacking for stimulation. I think in this world, you can pretty much turn on any device, any channel, and be stimulated in some way, right? But how often are you being moved in your life? Can you experience the difference? Do you know the difference? And this is where we get to explore what that real connection feels like. Does the real connection start with being able to express yourself verbally out loud to another being? Does it help you if AI gives you that space to pour into without judgment, without ridicule? And is that real connection? Or can you use that as simply an avenue to start expressing your voice and start allowing yourself to be fully seen? Because your voice is powerful. And I know what it's like to be scared of it. I know what it's like to want to avoid it. I know what it's like to not embody it. But this is where real connection happens. And it starts with your vision, your value, and your voice. And you have to connect to the real voice within, because the voices that you hear in your head, those are not your true voices. And so the question is when was the last time you let somebody fully see you? Your mess, your magic, and all of it. When was the last time you let yourself see you with grace and with generosity, your mess and your magic? So, I don't know, you guys. AI might mimic love. It might, but it can't do things like taste your tears or feel your pulse or hold you when you are in the fire of transformation. So, spiritually kinky isn't about perfection, it's about permission to feel, to fuck, to fumble, and to free yourself. When it's built on trust and done in the way of love and respect, you get to pick your flavor. So, what flavor do you want to choose? And listen, if you like this conversation and you want to go deeper on it and you've got questions or you've got input that you want to give, if you think that AI will really ever fully replicate emotional intimacy, is that where we're headed? Why or why not? What part of love or sex do you feel like shouldn't be replaced no matter how advanced tech gets? And how do you see AI influencing our culture narratives around love, worthiness, and pleasure? And then what's one social norm around relationships that you think that AI is going to blow wide open? So that's the episode that we have for you today. Again, AI might learn your preferences, but it'll never feel your pulse while you're unraveling in somebody's arms. And maybe, just maybe, we're craving perfect partners because we're terrified of being fully seen. And let me tell you, that's not love, that's programming. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you follow, make sure you share. That really helps us out. And until next time, my friends, stay spiritually kinky.